That's coming through, okay, yeah. We've got a few announcements to make. We'll make this pretty quick, and then we'll get these very patient candidates up here so we can meet them and hear some of their visions. There is a Respect Missouri Voters Town Hall on February the 19th, which is a week from Thursday, at the Labor Temple on Flora Drive. All this information is actually in the newsletter, so if you go back and look at the newsletter, you'll see all the details and the links if there's any sign-up required. Caitlin has a brief announcement about the ice out. Yeah, we're going to get you right now.
No. Hi, my name is Caitlin, and along with my co-host Summer, who couldn't make it out tonight, we're organizing Ice Out Missouri. I'm here tonight because we all want to save the community for our children. But right now, the safety is being undermined by aggressive ICE operations that disregard human dignity and due process. When a 5-year-old like Liam Ramos can be picked up on his way home from school, or when children watch their parents get detained in the streets, it doesn't make us safer. It instills a deep-seated fear and distrust of law enforcement in our youth. Our mission is simple. We are defending the constitutional rights that belong to every person on our soil. Whether someone is a citizen or an immigrant, they deserve due process and protection from state-sponsored violence. We are standing up against the creep of fascism and an oligarchy that thinks it can ignore our founding principles. I'm inviting you to join us on March 1st from noon to 2 on the south lawn of the state capitol. This will be a peaceful protest. We have a zero-tolerance policy for violence because our message is too important to be overshadowed. To quote Audre Lorde, when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak. So please come find me after the meeting to get our Facebook link, or you can email us at iceoutmissouri@gmail.com. Let's show the state that Cole County stands for dignity and the Constitution. Thank you.
All right, so as you know, I don't always need a microphone. Sunday at the library at 2 o'clock, we have a meeting with We Stand United. It is for the Missouri Budget Project, talking about income tax versus sales tax and the implications to the Missouri budget. It is free to go in. It will be nice and peaceful because it's at the library. And then you can always bring your kiddos because the library has a great selection of kids' books on that top floor. If you have any questions, We Stand United's website and also the Facebook pages and your links in your newsletter. Any questions? Cool.
And do spend time looking at that newsletter when you get it, because we decided instead of putting a bunch of websites on these blue sheets that you have to go home and squint and try and type in your computer, that we would just put an overview of what's on there, and you could go to the links in the newsletter and just click on it. It's a lot easier. We'd like to bring up these folks now, and in the interest of trying to be fair and unbiased, there are two things happening. They're actually going to be seated alphabetically by their last names. Not that there's a primary seat up here, but, and then you all got a number if you would like to ask a question. I'm going to pull some numbers out of a coffee can that match some of your numbers. I probably have more numbers than you have, so I may have to pull out 2 or 3 times to get one. But if you folks, yeah, there you go. If you folks would like to come on up here and be careful getting up on this stage. It's not.
I know.
Ready? I believe you're first here. There you go. There you go. And Sierra, you're in the second chair. James is in the third chair. And then I know my alphabet. Let's see now. Michelle.
Elevating or pinching?
Okay, good. So we're going to start off with 5 minutes for each of you. If you need me to, I can do that over here.
And I will be your timer. At 30 seconds to go, I'm going to give you guys a wave. Okay. Ready, set, go.
Duckworth, and I'd like to thank the Democratic Club for inviting me to participate in this forum. For more than 30 years, I've worked in education, building quality curriculum and meaningful programs for youth and adults. My service to the community has always been in the forefront. I lead with a servant's heart. My focus has been simple. How can I be good to my community, and how can I be a good neighbor? I've held my master's in public administration for many years, so I bring proven leadership to this position that I am running for. And in my professional role, I serve as a human resource director for state government, where I understand the importance of good stewardship, responsible decision-making, and putting people first. I also serve as a court-appointed special advocate, or CASA, and I advocate for the permanency of 4 kiddos in foster care. I have also been a foster parent, so I understand both sides of the coin, so to speak. It also reminds me that this work that I do every day, it isn't about, leadership isn't about a title. It's about doing the right thing and showing up every day and following through. Because our kids don't need an excuse. They need someone who's going to do the work. Through my nonprofit, Rise Up Foundation, we teach young people how to stay safe from sexual violence and domestic violence by fostering and building healthy, safe relationships. And we believe that prevention and education matter. Most importantly, I'm a mom. And my husband and I have raised 3 kids in the school district, and we have a 7th grader in our schools. Like so many families, I want classrooms to be safe for our kids, where they can thrive, and our teachers to feel supported and respected. I believe my experience, my heart for service, my commitment and love for this community, to be a voice for teachers, students, and families across our district is exactly what is needed on our board. And so on April 7th, I would appreciate your trust in casting your vote and picking number 6 for Gretchen Duckworth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sierra Griffin. I first want to say thank you for inviting me here to be able to speak to you guys about my role in my first priority as a board candidate for right now. And when I get on board, if elected, it'll be a team effort. So I wanted to say that my background is in education, mental health. I spent 14 years in education. I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois, and I grew up in a poverty-stricken area. Like, not a lot of people go there or make it out. And so I was one of the ones that did do something great with my life, and I want to be an example to students. So I work for the state education department in school counseling, and I work in college and career readiness, where I work directly with school counselors who are coming new to the field. And so I implement programs and try to implement programs that are centered around uncertified school counselors. As you know, there's a shift in education all over, and so our teachers and staff are really struggling right now, and so whatever I can do at the state level, I try to do. And so I started off as an early childhood teacher here in Jefferson City, and that was like one of my first positions, and then I went over to more heights to be a paraprofessional, where I learned a great deal about students and working those one-on-one relationships, working directly with students. And I can tell you relationships matter. And when students feel supported and they feel bad, they do more, they work harder. And also when teachers feel supported, they do more, they work harder. So my job here is just to be an advocate for students, teachers, and the community as well, and to hear and listen in on some of the issues that might be taking place in our schools, and to see how I can help. So I am here to be of service, and I want to be purposeful in that, and I want to hear and listen in on some of the issues and concerns today that you might have, and any questions that I may be able to answer. Thank you for your time.
First of all, I want to say thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight. My name is James Westbrook Senior. I'm also running for the school board. Mainly why I'm running for it is because I had the teachers of my life who taught me the well, excuse teacher, I wouldn't be here running. But why I want to run for school board is because I want to help children like this young lady right here, and like all other kids out there. I'm also an education teacher as well. I taught in different places like Moore Heights, East. Also volunteered at JC High School. So I would appreciate if you guys would welcome me on April 7th, 2026. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Michelle Rodemeyer. Thank you for the invitation. I'm in good company up here. So, a little bit about myself. I grew up in Jeff City, as did my husband, and we currently live in Old Summit. Lived there for about 26 years. Both of our boys have been part of the public school system. Our oldest graduated last year, and our youngest is in 8th grade at Lewis Park. My professional experience, I've been a CPA for over 30 years. I retired in 2023 from the state public health lab. I was the fiscal and budget manager there. I oversaw grants and all of the budget and fiscal items for the state public health lab during COVID. So we went from a $12 or $13 million budget to $26 million overnight, practically. So that was challenging, and I will say it's a lot easier. I said this to other people: it's a lot easier to say no when there's no money than it is to say no when there is, and you can't use it for every specific things. I currently and have been a tax preparer and did that all through my state career too. I still do that. My first tax return about 40 years ago when I was 2. And love doing that, loving meeting people. Also do accounting. I started my career with the state as an auditor. It's my worst class in college. Go figure, it ends up being my first career there. So I have that fiscal oversight. I have grants management, that kind of experience. Let's see. Okay, so, but most importantly, my experience as a mom. Kids all learn differently. We have one that he's pretty much can take care of himself as far as school goes. And we have another one who's smart as a whip, but just takes a lot more work on his part and on ours. So we understand that those challenges that families face, and so we're ready to be part of that solution to give support to all the families, and the students, and the teachers especially. It all starts with supportive teachers to make our schools great. So, and honestly, times are different than when we were in school, and so we have to be ready to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. So, I think I'm ready for that challenge. So I appreciate your vote.
I'm going to stand down here because I don't need to be in It's probably easier for those back. My name is Ryan Towner. I've lived here all my life. I was a 1999 graduate of Jeff City. Whenever I was going through, I was talking with someone earlier, didn't have air conditioning in all the classrooms, so it's like, been around a long time. So I was actually born in what was still hospital right up the street. So I've been around here all my life. I've been involved in a lot of different areas around Jeff City. So for the past 10 plus years, I've been involved in the United Way. Any of you get a chance to be a part of the United Way in any way, shape, or form, take the opportunity because it's amazing. It's a great way to learn about the community, but then also things you don't know about, all kinds of things about people too. So my wife and I together have 5 kids, 4 of which are in elementary school, 2 5th graders and 2 2nd graders, and then 1 at home. So prayers are always appreciated. So I always had good teachers. I don't know why, if that was me or if that was them. But I love going to school. And so I think that's something that's important. Not all the kids today, I think, like going to school. But I think school's important for everyone. Let's see, some of the other things I've done. Members of the community, so I've done United Way, I've done Salvation Army, I'm on the board of directors there. I try to give back whenever I can, because I think that it's important. Whenever you live, work here, you want to be a part of the community because you enjoy helping people, but also you have a chance and time to give back. So I've got, what did I say? Trying to remember all my notes, but yeah, so I think there's always the opportunity for giving back to the community. That's what I enjoy doing. That's why I do it, because I can. I'm not sure how I have time, but so thank you. Yeah, I think there's 3 seats that are open, so you'll have 3 choices in April. And to me, it's as mentioned before, being a parent makes you about as qualified as anyone does because you want to advocate for kids, you want to advocate for your kids, but then also other people's kids. It's very easy to do because you're a parent, you already have that responsibility, and so that's what I want the opportunity to do for other kids, because it's not just being on the board and just sitting there doing nothing. I want the opportunity to help kids, help the administration. Part of what I do, it was mentioned about money, because that's part of what the school board does with the administration. So on the United Way, I serve on the fund allocation committee, and part of that is reviewing all of the applications for nonprofits and the money that they're asking for every year. So that's part of what I do to serve that. So you look at a budget, you look at a P&L, you look at a balance sheet, and you're advocating, you're saying, okay, well, these people, done a good job. So I think that provides me a little bit of expertise. In my professional life, I own and operate Town Communication Systems here in Jefferson City. My grandfather started it in 1947. It's a small business. We do IT work for small businesses. So help people PC and laptop repair. So, but yeah, I'd like the opportunity to help to be a voice for you all. I think I'm good at listening. I don't know. I think my wife says I'm good at listening. I think my kids really say I'm good at listening. So yeah, I would appreciate your opportunity and vote on Article 7. Thank you.
All right, how many educators or former educators do we have here today? All right, everybody give them a hand. This is what I'm doing. My name is Trent Landingham. I'm a 2002 graduate of Jefferson City High School. Went to West School and TJ right after it was open, and JC. So why am I running for school board? Well, this is my mom right here. She's a career teacher at Jefferson City High School. My father was a teacher and a coach, Coach Al. I don't know if you guys remember him at all. And my wife has also been a career educator in Jeff City. She took a job out of Blair Oaks as an associate superintendent. I'm really trying to get her back. But I think when you get older, you start thinking about your life, and you think about how did I get from year to year. When I started having kids in school, it was so inspirational to me to see teachers, see educators, see paraprofessionals and principals, and that's why I'm doing it, because now I know how important public education was in my life. I do medical sales now. I went to Mizzou. It all started in school. I think we don't think about that when we're kids. We go to school, we take it for granted. We don't like it sometimes, but we have fun. But I think when you get older, really start to think about the impact that educators have on us. So I think, we're right, it's a different day and age in education. And teachers I talk to, they have new challenges. They have new things they have to do. They have, they're giving more of themselves every day in the classroom. So, I see that through the lens of educators that I grew up with and live with currently. And I want to make sure that teachers feel like they're the most important thing in that building. I want my kids to have the best, brightest people teaching them and raising them at school. So, I appreciate all the educators. You guys have any questions, grab me, but my name is Trent. I'm a non-apologetic supporter of public education, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. Now comes the fun part. I probably have more numbers in here than we're giving out, so I may have to do more than one poll to get it.
And by the way, they all did really great keeping time. I just want to show you that. They all have good time management. Across the board.
Is there a 31? Anybody have 31? Toss that way. 31. I'll put it on poll 10. Let's see. 12.
There should have been 12. I wrote that meeting out 12.
Yeah, 12. Okay, Shirley.
I have a question.
So whenever they built the new high school, there was some discussion about whether or not they would put solar panels on it, and the last superintendent kiboshed that. In light of the current situation, do we think maybe with all the increase in what our electric bills are going to go, that maybe we should reconsider something like that in some of our schools?
You each get 2 minutes.
Okay. I've got to be honest, I'm not very educated on solar energy. I think that we have a central office full of incredibly capable people. We could work with utility companies to figure out if that would be something that would make sense for the district or not. I don't know why they kiboshed it to begin with, so sorry, I don't have more information than that. I don't want to give you bad information.
That's a good question. I'm not sure, like Trent said, I'm not sure why they decided not to do that ultimately, but they have a lot of parking lots they could put some solar panels up over.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know why they would have kiboshed that either, other than budget, if they didn't have it, as they were building. That was during COVID, I think, and when things were starting to increase in prices and supply chain, and I don't know. I think it's always worth a relook to see if it's feasible now.
I agree with Trent and the rest of them. I mean, I'm not big on money myself, so we just gotta keep going with the flow. That's how I see it.
I'm not sure how to answer your question, but I'm going to trust that they make the most cost-effective choice for the school district.
And I would say that in all ways, those are worth looking into again. Things 5 years ago were different. As Michelle said, we were going through COVID. No one really knew what we were in and where we were going. So it's always good to revisit things that maybe didn't work 5 years ago. We may now be able to do, and if it's a cost savings for the district, then that's something that we could look into for the future.
Thank you. Is there 27? No 27? 18? Okay, how about 6? Somebody had to have 6, huh? 9? 9? No, be bashful. There are no cash prizes.
You can throw them a bag of chips.
An 8? Right. All right.
Drop notes. I like 'em.
about mental health, the same in education. Now, one of them is, what change do you see is necessary better to support the youth in mental health in our school district? Not only I say youth, but them you dealing with the youth. What about the teachers also? So what's the change do you see?
That's a good question, and I too appreciate good, healthy mental health. I think it's important that we look into investing into more counselors and therapists, behavioral interventionists for our students so that they can assist our students who need one-on-one attention and extra help. That will allow our teachers to teach the rest of the classroom without interruption, as well as we need healthcare providers that can talk to our teachers when they're having a rough day. Let's face it, all of our kids are not, they're not all a carnival at school sometimes. They come to school sometimes hungry, sometimes with their unmet needs. And if we can link social workers in our schools to kids and resources in our community to help them show up to school ready to learn, I think that would help our teachers out a lot to focus on what we're paying them to do, and that's to teach. And I do think our teachers need support because we ask a lot of them. We ask them to wear many, many hats, and we don't really put a lot of time and effort into their well-being. So I think we definitely could look into developing a program for our teachers to give them mental health, whether it's a mental health day or some kind of mental health lounge where they can go and relax and take time out from the kids, because adults need timeouts too.
Thank you for that question. Actually, I'm going to say that mental health is very high on our radar right now. As you know, the suicidal rate has risen with youth in our communities, and I think it's very, very, very important that we stress the importance of that in our school districts. Not that they are not already doing a good job, but there are additional resources that could be available in the community and partnerships that we can partner with in the state of Missouri that I think would enhance the development of a mental health framework in the school district. And when you have a framework that's built to empower teachers and to make them want to come to work, and everybody is on the same page and the same playing field, I think that would be effective. But also, not only that, you have home situations that are going on, and our parents are really struggling and working multiple jobs and not having enough time to dedicate to each student. And so what that shows is, it shows up in our schools. When they come to school and they're stressed about their own life, and they can't focus on their studies. They can't focus on what the teachers are teaching them. My mind is on whether or not I'm going to be able to make it home. Do I have transportation, or is my mom going to come pick me up, or am I going to have food to eat when I get home? Those kind of things are real realities that our families are, experiencing. And I come from that, and I come from a mom that worked hard and worked hard. My dad worked hard too as well, but I come from a lack of resources. We didn't have as many resources. We had to build resources from the ground up, and I know what that feels like. And I want to be a part of building those resources and support for our teachers, and students, and community.
Thanks for not making me take that microphone.
Good question. I think mental health is a very, very big, serious thing. A lot of kids go through it every day. Just look at the environment we live in. We don't know what these kids are going through or the teachers are going through. As long as we try to help our students, anything and everything, like I said before, it's possible. We just got to keep working with them. Whether it be one-on-one, whether it be asking them what's wrong with them, sending them to a counselor, talking to them. We just go out there and help them, because, like the young lady just said, a lot of people go through it every single day, and we just got to keep trying and trying and kids and help the families out to where they can get better and better with their mental health.
I think it's one of the biggest issues for our teachers, both their mental health and their kiddos, and their class mental health. The public schools these days are a whole lot more than just education for our community. For a lot of kids, it's that meal, 2 meals that they get, that they know they're gonna get. It's a lot more than that. And mental health, I think it was just the counselor last week, it's not hard. So yeah, I think it's a problem. How we change it, or change things, I don't know, but again, things are different than when we were growing up, so we need to give more resources where they're needed.
I appreciate the question. I think it boils down to what some have already referred to, but resources for the teacher, both in helping their own mental health, whether it's identifying a mental health need in one of their students, or in their classroom, or even another teacher. So helping the resources of that teacher, helping the resources that the student has, both if it's time that they need, if it's mentoring that they need, if it's whatever they need. So resources for the student, and then you also have resources for the parents. So you have resources that are needed for all, in order to address a problem like that. I think that's what it boils down to. Now, is there going to be a one-size-fits-all magic pill for all of those? No, but I think it's going to be different. You could put a framework into place that would be helpful for the student, for the teacher, and for the parent. And that may not always be the same everywhere. It may not always be the same in every classroom, every grade, even every building, because you're going to have differences among all of those. So, but I think that's one way that you can at least start to tackle that problem.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's got to be the right environment. That's so students feel like it's a good place, feel like they're thriving there. Feel like they don't. They have someone that cares about them, that wants them to be great, and wants them to feel safe. So I think I keep going back to teachers. I'm not expecting teachers to be counselors or therapists. But I think that connection they have with teachers allows us to get that student help with the organizations that we partner with in the district. I don't have much of a counseling background. I can't speak to specifics, but I think we need to be pushing kids to be involved in extracurriculars. I think clubs. I think the more students are involved and have support around them, I think the better they're going to do.
Thank you, folks. Do we have a number 10? Number 10. It's 19. 19. Are you sure you all took numbers? 23? All right, man.
What's the important one or two areas for the school board to focus to improve education?
I mean, I think we have to stop losing teachers. We have to stop losing good administrators because of the environment. So we have to stop the bleeding there. We have to recruit the best teachers and show them that we are a better place than wherever they're looking. And I think the other thing is, I don't think that we do a good enough job of selling the benefits of public education, the great things we do in the community. I just don't see it enough. So whether that's social media, whether that's events, I feel like we need to talk about the great things that are being done at Jefferson City Public Schools, and we need to be proud of it because it's a great place to be. It's a great place to live, and you know, I want people to be as proud of it as I am.
I may answer this a little bit differently than other people, but I kind of come into this position and approach it similarly to how I do other volunteer work that I do with United Way or wherever, is that I don't come in with preconceptions. I think my job, or any school board job, as well as other volunteer positions, is that you're there to be a sounding board, not only for parents, for administrators, and you all can bring things to us. That's part of what we do, is you're all a sounding board. You come to us, hey, there's a problem, there's an issue, okay? What's the problem, what's the issue? Bring it up with the administration, work with the teachers. You know, I think that's part of what we're supposed to do as a good school board member. So, I don't mean to not answer your question, but that's kind of how I approach it.
I think I agree with Trent. I agree with you too. But I think first and foremost, attracting and keeping the excellent teachers. I think we have been blessed, our family, with the teachers that we've had through our boys' school lives, and that is a big challenge and I think a big priority for the district. I agree, we don't talk enough about what good things that the district is doing. I think the district is on a good track. I think the advanced placement testing classes that they take, they are incredibly broad. They have so many now. And I'm going to plug Nichols because I think it's a hidden gem. They have so many programs there that I think are super important. I think the trades are going to be vital in the near future, for everything. And I think Nichols is a great place to start that journey for those kiddos going into trades. I think student, staff, and family support is another priority. And that's kind of all wrapped in together, but I think those are priorities that, and honestly, I don't know what I don't know, so it's all gonna be a learning thing too, process too.
I agree with you three to my left. We do need more things like that in school because, you know, like they said, we just got to step it up. The test boards and everything are really, really great. And the way I see it, along with our students and getting them to where they want to be at, we'll just keep moving the ladder every single time.
Thank you for that question. I don't really know, like, the overall problem in the schools. However, I do know there are some concerns from teachers and from parents. And so, coming from that lens, and also being in a school district, I can't really speak to what happened years ago, but I know right now the needs are really high with student behaviors, and I think trying to find ways that we could help support our students that are struggling and struggling with focusing and struggling with their behaviors, I think that would help retain teachers and keep teachers in the profession too as well. I think building supports for parents too as well, so that they can actually help support their student behaviors too as well. And then also the pay, working on retention options and retention incentive to keep them in their profession, keep them going strong. We do have good teachers, and some good PD would help too as well to deal with those behavior issues.
Do my 2 minutes start now, Becky? Okay. I think it's important that we make sure that we're listening to our teachers and finding out what they need. I'm still in touch with many of my kiddos' teachers from years ago that have moved on, but we have to make sure that our teachers have what they need and they're supported. I know morale in some of our buildings is not the greatest. Like many of the candidates have said, there's things we don't know that we won't know until we get into the position. But our place is to be a voice for you all, for the community, for teachers, for students, and to advocate for what's right for our kiddos so that they can go and learn and be successful, whether it's a four-year college or university or a trade school. I think behavior keeps coming up in a lot of parent conversations and how it's administered and if it's administered fairly. So I think that's something worth taking a look at because it does seem to come up quite often in conversations with parents and seeing how we can help kids get to school and be successful and learn and help our teachers be able to teach and not wear 15 hats, as I said earlier, because it's a lot. It's not the same school I went to. There's cell phones, and I think taking the cell phones out of the schools have been great. I know my kid is more engaged than they were, and they look forward to their time at home when they get to get on their cell phones. So I think we've made a lot of strides, and we can continue to improve.
Thank you. Let's try a couple more numbers. So 23, 16. Oh, I'm sorry, what? Okay. Okay. Well, since the numbers have been so successful, let's just do a show of hand. Nothing else for flexible,
Thank you all for being here today. I have all of my children, I'm so happy, are graduating out of college. But I'm here to support my grandchildren. My question is, I have several friends that are educators, and they spend an enormous amount of their own personal funds when children come to school that cannot afford supplies, food, those type of things. To the panel, what would you propose to include something in those educators' budget, whatever they get, something so that they can help them, so that they don't have to spend their own funds from their families to provide for the children? Most educators want to do it, whether they have the funds or not. That's my question.
I'd like to follow up on that, if you don't mind.
That was exactly what I was going to ask. In a galaxy far, far away, I was a mentor at one of the grade schools. And that is what I kept saying. That and underparented children. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it is what it is. Would it be possible to create a fund where interested citizens could contribute to provide that support for teachers who are digging down deep to try to provide for their students? Like she is saying.
I think that's a wonderful idea, and I think it does take parents, community, everyone coming together to make it happen. There are a lot of parents that can't afford school supplies, and I know we do lots of school supply drives at the beginning of the school year. But I typically, as a parent, will send school supplies in the middle of the year because I know they run out. And I know that our teachers are often digging into their pockets to pay for things, like you mentioned, and buy food. It is important that our community helps to fill the need. I was at a United Way unmet needs committee board meeting on Monday, and there are a lot of resources in our community that a lot of people don't know about. So that's why I'm saying if we can maybe get more social workers in the school to connect the resources from the community to the schools. I know we have school district social workers now, but maybe more is needed. And I do love the idea of bringing together a community support group that we can donate to bring supplies to the school.
Knowing that it's coming from the community should mean something to the teachers.
Absolutely, I think that's a wonderful idea.
Thank you for that question. I too understand the coming out of the pocket for things. Working for the state, we come out of pocket for a lot of things. But it's free. So I understand that part. I do think it's important for our students to have supplies. And I think that's why we have a community supply where parents bring supplies to this classroom where it's for all the students, so no student feel left behind or left out, which is inclusive. But I also think we can take additional steps to support those that are in need of supplies. Teachers, they don't make much, they don't make a lot, and so we want to make sure that we support them in any way we can, so that they're not feeling like they're reaching constantly in their pockets and taking away from their families.
I agree. There's a lot of parents out here who don't have a lot of money, and a lot of teachers that come out. Some teachers come out of their pockets, some teachers don't. I mean, it's just hard because you see teachers struggling just like parents struggling, and if we come in as a community and help our schools out, everything will be okay at the end.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think I said earlier the schools are so much more than education for some students. Like I said, those 2 meals that they know they're going to get each day, and I know there's other things through food bank where they get something to take home on the weekends, maybe. One of the things that I like to look at, I know some schools in the district, because the free introduced lunch is so high that just every kid gets a free breakfast and lunch. I'd be interested to see what it would cost the district to do that across the board. I know it costs more, but I'd be interested to see what that would be. And I like the idea of the community fund too. I know when we would shop for school supplies, and when we do, we usually buy 2, whatever it was, so that we knew there's other kids out there who couldn't afford to get those things. So yeah, there's a lot of needs out there.
That sounds like a good idea for a GoFundMe page or something like that, for teachers. No, I think that's a good question. Actually, my wife and I were talking about this, I don't know, semi-recently. I'm sure she would remember the exact date. I think that's something that's a great idea, because as Randy was talking about, there are United Way resources available for that very purpose. But then there's also parents that would be willing to help, but then some that may not be able to. So I think there's a secret formula there somewhere, whether it's additional school resources that have reimbursements, or parents and United Way. I mean, again, I don't think that's a puzzle that can't be solved, and I think it would benefit the teacher, it would benefit the student, and benefit parents. There's no negative or downside to any of that. So, I think that's just a matter of putting all of those things together and then figuring out what's going to work best for, all of those, for every situation, so.
Yeah, Michelle hit on something that I am interested in. We do have a high percentage of students on free and reduced lunch. However, there's a stigma that comes along with going through that process, and I don't want to minimize that. So I would be interested in knowing what that would take, and if the district could handle it. And, I do want to delineate, though, between food or meals and supplies. We have a large district. Our district has a large budget. And if a teacher is having to buy supplies to educate her kids with, that's a big problem. And they have money for that. And it might be a principal that isn't aware of the supply budget. It might be somebody at a higher level. Okay, well then talk to us, because that's not going to happen. So I know that there are funds for supplies, and I do think that the district has started to whittle down those lists to keep that in mind. But I also don't know if that's necessary, because there's money for that. The community pays taxes to support education.
I got a question.
Go ahead. You got the mic.
Kind of a policy question. How do you think AI should be or not be incorporated in classrooms?
I stay up at night thinking about this. So, I think it's like math with a calculator, right? I think that it's important for people to know how to compose a letter, how to speak, how to write, how to structure a paragraph. But I think that we're being very naive if we don't think that AI is going to be front and center of everything that somebody document they create. So I might be an outlier, but I think that we should at least educate and embrace some of those tools on top of teaching. I think you teach a skill first, make sure they don't skip that. But I do think it should be implemented in the curriculum. I mean, Mizzou just announced an AI degree they're going to do. So I don't think it's going anywhere. Maybe you guys don't feel that way, unfortunately.
What was it, that country of Venezuela, I think, is instituting and using it in their classrooms like all the time. I'd see this no different than computers or television or telephones. You're not going to avoid it. You're going to have to embrace it. How you control how it is instituted or how it's taught for students and for it may help teachers, it may help students, it may help educators. So it can be helpful, can be harmful. It's a tool. So how you use it is how you're teaching people to use it. So I think there's opportunities there for not say that you have to embrace all of it, but I don't think you can avoid it or sweep it under the rug. How it's used, I think we're going to have some pretty good examples here pretty soon of people being able to see how it's used, with a lot of people just jumping into the deep end, so to speak, and learn from that. So you don't have to be bleeding edge, but leading edge with it. I think there's some opportunities for embracing it to help teachers on the outset.
I don't think AI, again, AI is not going anywhere. It's going to be more prevalent as we move forward. I think the most important thing is to again, learn the skill first before you use the AI as a tool to help that. But it is just a tool. I think we need to also be teaching somehow learning the ethics behind it, and knowing when it's appropriate and when it should be used. And also to not trust everything that it tells you. Because it's not always right. So I think it's a tool, and we have to teach them to use it properly.
I don't think AI is going anywhere either. Because we use the techniques to do things differently than everything we do. Like Trent said, AI is not going nowhere.
question. This is such a loaded question. Because I can go on and on for days, because if you grew up in a time, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, but we grew up with encyclopedias and, you know, dictionaries and all those things, but we're so far along now in time, so it's going fast, as you can see. And so with AI, I think it's not a bad thing. I think it's pros and cons to it, and just like some of the rest of them said, teaching them how to use it properly might be an effective way to kind of like push it, but then also to kind of monitor how much you're using it. Because you don't, what you don't want to happen is students to depend so much on AI that they're not critically thinking for themselves. I think it's so crucial for you to be able to think on your own and to be able to think quick on your feet too as well. And knowing how to maneuver those things, because it's new and it's not going anywhere, we can just kind of only do what we can and make sure that we're providing some type of PD to teachers on how to work with students on it and how to pretty much adapt to it in the classrooms, because it is something that is new and refreshing sometimes too to teachers, as it saves them some time too as well.
Thank you for the question. AI is here, just like when the internet came into play, and we were scared of what our kids were going to be out there seeing. So we have to educate ourselves on what the capability is. It's going to continue to grow. The capabilities will continue to widen. As we learn more, we have to put safeguards in place for our children so that they know how to use it responsibly. And as Michelle mentioned, the ethics behind it is very important, so that we don't end up with medical students writing papers with AI and then coming and doing surgery on us. So we have to make sure that we are being responsible with it, but it is a helpful tool as long as we respect the tool.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a different question for you. There's been a lot of discussion about resources, and we all know that we don't have enough resources. And every year there's an issue with, fully funding the formula. Last year, I believe it was like $50 million over to the parochial school system. There's a push to take more money and put it into the parochial school system. So if you had the opportunity to talk to the governor, what would you say? Would you be in favor of this, or would you say, hey, really, the public school system, this money belongs to us, and how would you advocate for that?
That's a great question, Francis. I definitely would advocate for the public school system. I think that we have a duty to make sure that we are educating our kids and focusing on the education that we're providing, so that we are one of the top schools in the area, so that we are the first choice that people choose. I don't know what the state legislature is going to do. I don't know if they're going to vote for that or not. But I think that if we continue to position ourselves as the #1 school in the area, then we'll be the first choice.
I think that public schools are very underfunded, and so I think it takes away from our students. And if we're putting our tax dollars in to the school district, I think that we should honor where those funds go. We have a right to know where those funds are going, and I think that I would advocate for that, because I also believe strongly that there's programs in schools and districts that they don't have the money, for funds for it. You think about some of those programs like special education gifted programs and some of those programs like that. We need those resources. We need those resources to make our programs in our school district work better each and every year and progress. So I think that taking away funds is never a good idea for public education. It doesn't actually honor our mission.
Good question, Ms. Francis. it's a hard question because the way I see it is if the state wants to take our money and government wants to take our money, that's not gonna happen. Whether I'm on the board or one of my fellow people here are on it, we will not let that happen. We will make sure our kids are getting what they need and when they need it. That's how I see it.
Anything that takes away from the schools, I would not be in favor of. And they're not fully funding the formula. They're not fully funding transportation, and that's gonna be a huge issue. Not just for us, but all the rural schools around too that rely on that money. There are things that public schools are required to do that private schools are not. And as long as we are required to, then I feel like the money should be coming to the public schools and not to private schools.
Hello? Does that take away from my time?
No, I'm not
As everybody was talking up here, I was reminded of something that my mom always told me, is we need to mind our own beeswax. And what I mean by that is that us as school board members, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to make sure that we're taking care of public schools, listening to you all, listening to teachers, listening to parents and the administrators, and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So that means fully funding, using the money that we're given in the best way possible to make sure that students are taken care of, the teachers are taken care of, and that's what our job is. So if there's something that comes up that tries to take away from that we can't control, that's out of our control, then hey, it's our job to make sure that that money stays within the school system.
Well, since I'm last, I have time to ask AI what to say.
So you're gonna have the perfect answer.
I'll start you over on that one because you got it.
So I think that public education is, let me put it this way. I think a lot of people are gonna lose seats in whatever Senate, State House, wherever across the country because they go against public education. So I really think that public education is supported by both parties. I think this voucher thing is not popular if you look at everyone who votes. So I do think there's going to be some pushback from that. And I think that, like Ryan said, I think that we have to do the best to show that we're where students want to be. But I also haven't had anybody at all be able to tell me how vouchers work in rural Missouri. I don't think it's even possible. So I know we need to take it seriously, but I guess that's what I would ask is how does vouchers work in Jefferson, Missouri?
The subsidy for the rich.
Oh, yeah. But if, does it work? Is that charter schools or program schools? Yeah, I know they can go charter. I don't know about private. I don't know about parochial.
Better learn.
Well, then they're going to have to start accepting all students from everywhere. They're not going to want to do that. So they won't take it.
It doesn't require them to do that.
So just one other whole thing, because, I know you guys will look at this government, but that's okay.
We will. We only had 2 minutes.
And whoever ends up on the board, you as a citizen have the right to walk over to the governor's office and walk in there and tell him how you feel.
Good evening. Could you give an example of a time you changed your mind after listening to feedback?
I'll give you a second, because that's a thinker. We got 5, 4, 10.
All Americans all the time.
I guess I'm gonna repeat it. Can you give an example of a time that you've changed your mind after listening to feedback?
Will have to come back to me. I've told them I'm wrong so often. I mean, all the time. I think you always have to be open to every point of view. And I think regularly I will have a way I think of something, and then I do my own research, and I kind of say, hey, you're wrong. You need to change. So I'll think of a better example all the time.
I'm sure my wife can name numerous examples. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but not a specific example. But yeah, I mean, I changed my mind. You know, like Trent said, I mean, you come into something and you think you know, and then you know you're challenged on that idea. I think part of it, at least in my opinion, is the way that you're challenging someone on their idea. That's important. And I think that's because if somebody's coming at you, you know, with you know, the way that they're coming at you, you know, and challenging your idea in a mean, you know, evil, you know, spirited way, that matters because your reaction isn't going to be accepting of their idea. It's going to be to rebuff it. So I think that matters a lot whenever you're challenged on any idea. And I like to think that I'm genuinely level-headed and pretty patient. Yeah, my wife's agreeing with me, so that must be good. I think, you know, so I think that approaching any situation whenever you're challenged on your idea is being patient, listening twice as much as you talk. Moms and whatever, you know, so.
Yeah, I think being a mom, you our kids are so smart. I learn a lot from them. Well, no, they really are. They teach me a lot of stuff. That, I think being a supervisor and a manager, I've learned to, you know, you have to find out the whole story and learn all sides. Specifically in a conflict, if there's a conflict, you gotta resolve it. For sure with a learning attitude, I try to enter everything with that, what can I learn from it? Because I know I don't know everything, especially with this. I know this is going to be a huge learning curve for me. So.
All I know is that you got to be able to listen in order to have a good advice. Because, you know, I was once told before, hey, you got to listen because the world's going to be really, really tough when you get out there. And I learned that growing up as a child, we got to be able to listen when you get out there to the real world.
Thank you for that question. I think this is like another loaded question, but I appreciate it so much because I think feedback is where growth happens. And a lot of times we may not see it that way, but when someone is giving us feedback, that means they care. So if you're giving feedback at any moment, you have to take a step back and think about that and put some perspective to it. And be open to the idea of all sides, and like Michelle said. And I also think that being in the role I am in, I have to listen to educators' feedback. I have to listen to what the community is saying and to make those programs effective for the people that I'm serving each day. So I think that's important in any kind of relationships or any type of accomplishments, I think it's important.
Thank you for the question. I think it's an awesome question. One of my very first jobs was at McDonald's, and the founder of McDonald's was Ray Kroc, and something he said stuck with me, and it was, when you're green, you're growing, and when you're ripe, you're rotten. And that's fostered my love of learning throughout the years. I think it's fostered it to the point that in all of my management team building with my teams, I've always asked for their feedback on how I'm doing. I get to give them their evaluation, but I think it's doubly important for them to give me their feedback on how I'm doing. So I've always had that open door policy with my team, that you can come and tell me if I get on your nerves, or if I did something that you didn't appreciate, that I'm human too. And some days I'm not gonna have a great day. Some days my tone might be sharp, but you can come and tell me that, and I'm gonna accept the knowledge that you're giving me to help me to grow as an individual and as a supervisor, and just as a human being. I think we all can learn things from each other. We all have different worldviews, so it's important to keep both ears open and listen to understand and not just to respond.
As we continue to starve, or we see schools continue to starve for funding, we know that there will be changes coming. And many schools across the state, unfortunately, have been so starved that they have resorted to 4 days school weeks. Now that I know can help recruit teachers, and I know that that can save a little bit of the budget, but I want to hear what you would do if that discussion came to Jefferson City.
I definitely think that there are pros and cons to that idea. I would definitely want to hear from our educators on how they feel about a 4-day work week. Hear from parents on how that would affect them in childcare with the jobs that they have, and if we're able to get the job done in 4 days versus a 5-day week. So I think it's worth looking into, but I think more time is needed to study that, and if that's the best decision for our school district.
I think looking at the data, and I'm a data person, so looking at the data and comparing data from previous years and just kind of diving deep into that, analyzing the data, I think that gives us all the answers that we need to know when it comes to making any type of change within the school district. I think starting from there, you also you have a reason behind it, and you're able to, as a board member, if elected, I'm able to give you guys a why, and be more transparent. So I think that's.
I think, looking back, like you were just looking into the data and things like that, there's more probably the things that to do about the data. The data is like, to me, is really, really big, but I just look into the data more often, do not do anything else.
I think you have to keep an open mind for all options. I don't think it would be a top option for me. I go back to the kiddos needing 2 meals a day on Friday, or whatever day they take off, would take off. I think that would hurt them. Again, you have to keep your options open. It would be a hard sell for me. The way I do it.
Yeah, personally, I'm not sure that that's going to work for our school district. I just don't. I think it's much more complex, a much more complex problem than a simple just, we'll just hack off a day, and then whatever that's going to affect, that's going to affect. I think that would be pretty. I think that'd be pretty hard for a lot of people to swallow. Not only, as Michelle mentioned, the kids that depend on school lunches or meals, but it's also parents that work. Like, oh yeah, well, hey, sorry, I gotta go down to 4 days a week. guards up. I don't think it is maybe a solution, but is it the solution? You know, I don't think any of us up here can, you know, say whether that would be or won't be, right now, at least.
Thanks for the question. An ex-coworker of my wife, who's the superintendent at Russellville, did his dissertation on the 4-day school week. And what he found was that you actually don't save very much money. Because you still have to maintain your facilities. You still have to, if you have a bus contract, you think they're gonna give you 1 day off a week? No, they're just gonna raise the daily rate to that. So if money isn't an issue, then it falls down to, is this good for students? And I can't get there on that. If this is purely, I think that the districts that are doing this are smaller districts, rural districts around Missouri. There's a couple of them. And it's really all about teacher retention. So I would much rather stay in 5 days, take care of students that need support 5 days a week, and make sure that our teachers are happy to teach here 5 days a week, personally.
I have in my trusty bag. I have a petition that will put on the ballot in August or November the requirement that the legislature fully fund public education. Anybody who is a registered voter in Missouri can sign the petition. I have it, and Connie at the far table has it, and it is my deepest hope that anyone running for school board would want to sign this petition. So please approach us tonight to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for your time to talk with us. My question is, do you feel that the Jefferson City School District have a sufficient safety protocol in place? This is a two-part question. And if not, then what would you do to improve that safety protocol?
I mean, I think they do. I know that they do periodic drills. If you're talking about intruder drills and things like that, I think there are a lot of legal safeguards that maintain that the buildings have to always have this level of protection in the doors. They have to do, I know firsthand from my second hand, I guess, I know they have to do required intruder drills, tornado drills. So if that's what you're talking about, I feel like they're safe. We also have some really good student resource officers in our building that create relationships with the students. So I think that I feel safe sending my kids here, personally.
Yeah, I think the schools do a pretty good job of that. I mean, is it perfect? No, but what is? I think they do a pretty good job of it. Are there always going to be, room for improvement? Absolutely. But, training, both with students, with teachers, and then also extending that training to the parents, because you get, different perspective and hey, what do you do if this happens? What do you do if this happens? It's our job as parents to also educate our kids too. Let's not forget that. But I think there's always going to be, room for improvement for any of those safety protocols in any school.
I agree with these guys. I think they are doing a good job. You get into any school unless you check in at the front. So I think, and they have other drills, things that they do. This is one of the things I need to learn more about. But from what I've seen as a parent, I'm not scared to send my kids there to to school, and they're not scared to go. So that's, as far as, like I said, I have more to learn on that side.
I believe we do have good schools here in Jefferson because, again, they're safer at the schools. We got good resource officers at all the schools. We have just so many tremendously good people at all the schools in town that I believe that nobody, whether it be the resource officer, the teacher, the counselor, or whoever, are going to let anything happen to our students, to our kids, and that's a guarantee.
I think that if we are having some concerns from students and teachers about safety, I think it's important for us to look at the safety protocol. But if there is not any current issues as of right now, I think that Jefferson City is doing a good job and to monitor whether or not that this protocol is effective or not. And if elected, if any of us are elected, that's something that we can definitely look into.
Thank you for the question. I think that we do have good protocol in place, but we can always continue to expound on it. We're living in different days right now. I know when I grew up, it was not unusual for people to come to school with shotguns in the back of their pickup truck and park in the school parking lot. Unfortunately, things have changed these days. I would like to look into maybe safety on our buses before they get to school, because I think a lot of things happen on our buses, even though we are putting monitors on there, they're understaffed. So a lot of behavior issues go on, and it goes down, as the kids say, on the bus. But I would like to look into that. I think our educators are doing a good job with the drills and making sure our kids know what to do. I know my kid came home and said what she was going to do if an intruder came in, and I laughed and I said, well, you never know until you practice. I said, practice is what you do. It comes through, your training comes through when that happens. So I think it's good that we're continuing to practice.
My question is that we advertise so much about busing, the safety for kids on the bus, when transport back and forth with traffic. But what would you do, and how would you advertise it more for the walkers, the kids that's walking, and for the traffic, in the traffic school zones? So in the school zones, there's so much traffic. It's like it's 20 miles per hour, but at that time it seemed like we were going 50 miles per hour. So how would you better manage that and to advocate it more to the public, not just for the busing, but advocate it for the walkers also?
Thank you for that question. I think it's very important that we continue programs like we have. I remember when my daughter was at South, they have a walk to school, organizing parent groups so that they can walk together with kids. There's been numerous times I've taken her to school and there were really small kids walking to school by themselves. But I know that parents were left with a difficult choice because they had to go to work and their kids still had to get to school, so they allow their child to walk to school. To me, they were too young to be walking by themselves, but I know that's a tough decision that some of our parents have to make. And I think organizing more parent-teacher organizations to where some of the parents can maybe come together and help walk kids to school that are in that radius from the school to help make sure that they're safe. It's definitely something that we need to look into because I know parents that their kids are, within that radius of having to walk to school are not left with the option of getting on a bus. So it's definitely something to take a look into.
I think working with, maybe collaborating with the state, the transportation department, and trying to see what we can do to, if that is a concern, trying to see what we can do for our community so that there are parameters around sure that safety is the top priority so that students arrive safely and arrive home safely. But if that is something of concern, we can definitely address that on the board and kind of see where to go from there.
You know, it's different from when we all grew up here in Jeff City, where we can just walk, where we can all just walk to school, whatever, but these days and ages, we just gotta start. We need to be able to have get more resources out there to where we can figure out how to get your kids to school safely, because it's just too many crazy things going on here these days and ages, from what is on the news and different things, like kids being kidnapped, there's trafficking going on, there's this and that going on. If we just come together as one, we can make something happen.
I think everyone said surprising. Safety is the most important thing, getting them to and from school safely. Parent groups, if you're living in that radius, I know that's hard. I've just gone to work and seen a lot of kids walking. I think sidewalks should be looked at in those radiuses work with the city to make sure that they're not walking on the street. I've seen some even waiting for buses on the street, and I worry about them. A lot of times the kids aren't paying attention when they're waiting for the bus, and so I worry about distracted drivers too in that situation as well. I think we always have to keep looking for ways to improve those things.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think all of us as parents, want our kids to be safe, going to and from school. And there's a lot of different ways that all of us, approach that. It's not going to work. It's not going to work for someone else. The same thing. So involvement with, as it's mentioned, parent-teacher groups are good. The city also has resources. I can actually help point you in those directions because I actually serve on the Traffic and Transportation Board of the city. We do those school zones, stop signs, and that. So I've seen firsthand whenever there are concerns like that. That is something that I'm familiar with. And that's, everybody wants our kids to be safe, whether it's putting in crosswalks, whether it's putting in, school zones or slowing down, whether it's also seeing that there's a problem area where, hey, police, we need your help in slowing people down here, making people aware of it. So it's a combination of all of those things. So that's a good question.
Yeah, I think that those are all great ideas. I don't have anything outside of the box of that. You said your son's a police officer here in town. I do know that there's a good partnership with JCPD. If anyone ever sees, if I ever see somebody speeding through a school zone, they'll set a speed trap up before those hours, and they'll take care of it pretty quick. Other than that, some other great ideas. I like the sidewalks. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So just kind of a follow-up on that, because isn't the distance like if you're outside of a mile?
I think it's a quarter of a mile. Is it a quarter of a
Well,
mile?
I'm just wondering, what if you reduce the amount of reduce that distance? And I realize that could be more transportation costs. I get that, but like Gretchen was saying, you get these little kids that are out there walking, and it's like there would have been no way I would have let my kids have done that. And I realize that people sometimes don't have that option. So I see that as something that could be something that helps people by allowing other kids to be picked up that maybe aren't being picked up right now. Thoughts?
I think it's smart to always ask questions and see if that's a possibility. I couldn't even tell you I should know. You're right, though. I think it's closer to a mile than a quarter.
I think there's
dinner,
Since we've been talking about transportation, I don't know how many of you would be in our local Jeff City groups where people regularly complain. But one of the most recent complaints I've been seeing a lot is about transportation. I myself have been having a lot of issues with the transportation system. Off the top of my head, it goes as far as them not wanting to update bus stops for safer transportation and waiting, all the way to them incorrectly giving us information about our buses, not giving it at all, not wanting to fix it, etc. How would you propose fixing our current transportation issues? Because I feel it has been definitely just degrading over time versus improving.
Yeah, there was the bid changed, so companies changed a year ago. And I know that it's not an excuse, but I know that there was a rough period when they started. I heard about some things getting better, but I think it's important that you're able to communicate with the district, the board office, and get that feedback across. And I always tell people, if you contact the board office or if you contact the school, you don't get an answer. That's what representatives of the school board are for. Because if someone's blowing you off and not giving you the right answer, that's why there's a board of citizens to ask those questions and put some heat on people. That'd be my advice.
I don't know that I have a perfect solution for you, unfortunately. I've never been good at blowing smoke, so. But that's kind of a combination of a few things there. One of the things that I've learned in being involved the way I've been involved with community, specifically in the traffic and transportation, is that they change over time. And I never really thought about it before until I sit there and it's like, oh, okay, well, as you get more buildings, you get more people, those traffic patterns change over time. And so as those traffic patterns change, a district or the transportation needs also should keep up with that and change. And if they're not, then that's, again, like Trent's saying, part of the job, to notify the school, to notify the principal, and on the chain, so that, hey, because they may not know of a change that you're experiencing that's going to affect other people. They should, but that's what our job is to be a sounding board there if you're not being heard. So.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of heartburn when the contract first changed. And I'm not going to say first meeting was perfect because there was issues there too. It's concerning. That's a concerning issue. I think transportation. And from Holt Summit side, it takes our kids a long time to come over on the bus to get to Wilson Park or to the high school. And so transportation is a big issue for everyone on the north side of the river. And what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of changes happening and it's on the fly. And that's the part I don't like, where they could get a text every single day about a bus change. And so I think there's some work to be done. And if you're not getting answers from the district, then again, that's what the board members are for. But I think it is still an issue.
Again, like my running mate, if you can't get a hold of the school bus or the school, that's what we are here for. We're here for you, and that's the only thing I can actually say about that.
Well, thank you for that question. I can relate as a parent. I know that there are times where you're concerned whether your kid is going to get picked up or not. And my son catches the bus too. So, and now do he likes waiting for the bus? No. But sometimes in those moments, I think it's out of frustration because sometimes we have to be at work or we may not think to reach out to the schools or to let them know or notify the transportation people. But the more you speak out the district would hear those issues. And then as a board member, if elected, we will be able to actually do something about it, but as of right now, I know the frustration is real. I have a student in the school district that catches the bus frequently, and he often complains about it every day. Mom, can you take me to school today? Like, so I can relate to that. And so if I was elected on a board, I will make sure that we talk about it and we have real discussions about realities of parents and families.
Thank you for your concern. I too share that. I did see a lot of the posting in it's good, bad, and ugly, and it was really ugly. I think that the problems with the transportation has been around for a long time, even when my adult children were taking the bus. I think COVID really hurt in a lot of ways, and I know the bus companies are having trouble staffing and getting bus drivers to drive. That's one of the problems. But it can't come at the cost of our students' safety. I know right now there's a lot of overcrowding on the buses to where there's 3 people in a seat and kids standing in the aisles. So that's concerning, as well as kids getting to school late. So that could affect their academic performance. It's definitely something that we need to have discussions about. I think all of us here, if we were on the board, would be putting our heads together to try to figure it out. But like a lot of people said, maybe not this way with the squeaky wheel gets heard. So we need to be, going to the board and letting them know our concerns with transportation so that they can hold the people that they contracted our transportation with accountable.
The public school board meetings are open. So as long as there's an agenda item, I encourage you to go to the board meeting to make your case and let your story be known.
I think you have to email the board.
It has to be on the agenda. It has to be on the agenda.
Wasn't the board secretary?
Yes, you call the district, and I don't know all the technicalities, but if you call the district office, they'll be able to tell you that can be put on the agenda for the next board meeting.
You can go to their website and get her email.
It has to be on the agenda for you to be able to speak on it, but if it's on the agenda, that's your place.
And so a couple of quick things before we close this out. Chris Chevrolet, who's the 7th candidate, was going to be here, but he had a business conflict today and had to cancel. I just wanted to give a shout out that he could be here. And I've noticed some confusion on some of the local sites where people are chatting. A lot of people think they can only vote for one person, and there are 3 slots available. So you've got a lot of good candidates up here to choose among. So there are 3 slots. It's not just voting for one person. And let's give a big hand for these person. A big hand for yourselves for the thoughtful questions. I have one regret that I wasn't able to pull that number for the trip to Cancun. Thanks again.
Thank you.
And if you don't forget to sign that petition if you have